Hello. What is up, people? Sorry, we are running slightly late because I think Vikrant has a slight problem with settings, but that is sorted out now, and we are going to start. So, welcome to this last talk. Whoever is here, this is going to be very very interesting talk because it's going to be about one of the really interesting roles in the game industry, which a lot of people don't know about. People know about art, people know about programming, people know about design. But what a lot of people don't know is that one of the hottest and most in demand and challenging roles in the industry right now is that of product management. And today, we have with us Vic, all the way from sunny California in the US. Let me give a brief introduction. So, Vic Agarwal is the lead product manager at Zynga, where he's helping launch the next generation of games. He has over 7 years of experience. You know what? I'll let him talk by himself. One thing I will say, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. And also, guys, if you go to the handouts, tab, you have a feedback form. So please, at the end of this talk, it would be great if you could actually give feedback on this talk, how it was and how we can improve, etc., etc. It will really help us to do better next time around. So without further ado, I hand you over to Vic. Welcome, Vic, and thank you so much for, I know you just probably woken up back in the US, must be getting ready for work, and now you have to give this talk. So awesome. Thank you so much. Take it away, please.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here. Just to check, can you see my talk? There we go. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Today we're here to talk about product management and analytics in the gaming industry, or we were just discussing with Rahul that what does it really take to be a product manager? As you mentioned, I'm a lead product manager at Zynga. I've been in the gaming industry for 8 years now. I've worked at a variety of studios that I'll go into details shortly, and then we can do some exercises to say, hey, what does a product manager think of every day? So one thing I'm going to assume is that most people know the basic gaming acronyms like FPS or MMO for first-person shooter or massively multiplayer online. But if you don't, just feel free to chime in with discuss or QA, and I'm happy to chat more about it. So to start off, this is the agenda for today. As I mentioned, first I'll tell you a little bit about myself. How I got into the gaming industry. I studied computer engineering in Pune. How did I go from there to grad school to my first job, which was not in gaming at all, and how I wound up in gaming. And then the second part is product management 101. What does the strategic side look like? What does the analytics side look like? And what are the typical questions that a PM faces every day? That's the kind of things that we're going to look at. So moving on, this is actually the name of my blog, and it holds a really special significance to me because when I was in the banking industry and trying to join the gaming industry, everybody kept saying, hey, Vic, when we meet you, we understand you know a lot about games and are really passionate about games, but we don't see that on your resume because you've obviously not worked in games before. So is there a way you can show us that passion on paper? And I kept trying to think, I kept trying to make it my own app and make my own game, but, I didn't have the technical skills to do so. So I was trying to figure out what the best way to do that. And that's how my blog was born. I started writing a lot. It's called Geek's Mirage because, there's more than one vision of a geek that you can have. And if you read this topmost post there, that's about my journey into gaming. It's like a 10-page post, so it's really, really long. But if you want to see the micro details of how I went from banking to gaming, that's a really good long read. So I just wanted to throw it out there. So moving on from that, this is my journey all the way from when I studied computer engineering in Pune all the way to today where I am at Zynga. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview of how I got there and what the different steps were. So when I started at PICT in Pune, I was a typical computer science engineer. I enjoyed learning about systems engineering and about network security and all the different classes I took. And, I was studying for my CAT exams. I was ready to go in for my MBA, give that. And when I was in my final year of college, a really good friend told me, Vic, I know you want to go for your MBA and you've been prepping for that since your third year, but you've always wanted to learn, and I've been giving the GRE, and I've been really thinking of going abroad. Like, why have you never considered that? And I said, I just never thought of that as an option. Like, I was just, wanted to go do my MBA after college and then, go work in the industry. So I gave it a lot of thought. I spoke with a few people who had applied abroad. I'm like, maybe this is just something worth considering. And I quickly pivoted. I gave my GRE and TOEFL, and then I applied. I was lucky enough to get through Carnegie Mellon, where I studied computer security, because that was one of the things I was really interested in my undergrad. So I studied that for 2 years, and my degree was actually in computer security and management. And that's where I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. Like, the management side is interesting me more. And I went and worked in the consulting industry initially, which was Deloitte. And then I worked in the banking industry for a few years at Citibank. But the key takeaway for me there is that that's where I discovered analytics. And this is like 12 or 13 years ago. So analytics was still up and coming. That wasn't really a degree you could study at the time. But the number crunching really, really interested me. It's just that banking industry product life cycles are very long. So I'm like, I know I always loved tech. So let me apply for tech jobs. And that's where I kind of made my first mistake, where I was like, oh, I work on a product and I'm a manager. So that means I'm a product manager, right? Apparently, it doesn't work that way, because the number one thing a PM needs is industry experience. And I obviously had no industry experience in tech or gaming. So whenever I applied for jobs, nobody would consider that, or they would interview me and then say, oh, okay, you're passionate, but have no industry experience. And that's where I go into a lot of detail on my blog. But to cut a long story short, I actually, over 2 years, looked at tens of thousands of jobs, probably gave out hundreds of business cards, and, gave it dozens of interviews at different places, trying to figure out what is it that I really want to do. And luckily, my friend's roommate worked at a gaming company at that time. I'm like, wait, this is a real job? People work in games? I didn't know that was a thing. And, again, long story cut short, I got my dream job at EA at the time. And that's where things really began. So that's why I started in an analytics job and not a product job. And over all these companies, I worked my way into that. So at EA, on Dawngate, which was their MOBA to compete with League of Legends, I was the lead analyst. On Pogo, I was the monetization manager. I really enjoyed the economy side of it. So I moved to DNA Games, where I was actually a product manager for the first time. I learned about making events. I learned about game design. I learned about live ops. And I realized that between game design and live ops, I really loved the live ops side of it. So that's why I went to work at Machine Zone, which at that time was the number one gaming company in the world on mobile. They always had the top three apps in the App Store. Game of War, Mobile Strike, Final Fantasy, if you'd heard of them. These games, if you look on App Annie, made about $1 billion per year per game. So, that's a lot of money. And they were always there in the top three for, 3 or 4 years. So they were there, and, I learned a lot there. After that, after I learned live ops, I'm like, I want to do this at scale. I want to do this bigger. And that's when the Amazon Games opportunity came knocking, where I worked at many different initiatives, including Twitch Prime, which lets you get free loot in your favorite games. So that is a pretty fun thing to do. And then using all of these experiences, I wanted to kind of take it to the next level, which is why I'm here at Zynga in the central product team. So, this is a long journey that I've had, but I want to share it with you to just show that even though I started with computer science engineering in Pune, now this is my way into product management. So now that you know a bit about me, let's actually talk about what we're all here for, which is product management. So what is a product manager, and what does a product manager specially do in gaming? So there's three things a product manager does in games. The first is the strategic side, that when you're wanting to make a game, you're like, what game should I make? What genre should I look in? Should this be on console? Should this be on mobile? How long should we, have the development cycle for? How many people would we need? That's the strategic side. Then there's the executional side. Okay, now that you've decided you want to make game X, for so much time on console, then how do you go about it? How do you do the project planning for it? How do you do the hiring plan for it? That's the execution side. And then the third part is the leadership. That most of the time with product managers, other than maybe a few analysts or junior product managers, nobody's really reporting to you. Everything you do is by influence and leadership. So whether it's art or marketing or design or legal or finance, that you have to work with everybody to achieve the common goal. So you have to be a people's person. You have to be able to go and talk to many, many people a day. I will say most of your work happens in meetings. You'll probably have between 5 and 50, probably not 15, about 12 meetings a day, just trying to talk to different people, trying to get the initiative moving forward. So leadership is a really important component of gaming product management. So now that we know a bit about what a product manager does, one of the most common questions I get is that, so product, project manager, same thing, right? Well, not really. There's a fine nuance between all the different titles I've listed here. And that's why I want to go through them one by one, because it took me years to figure this out when I was trying to join the product management industry in gaming. So the first one is product management, which I already discussed. We do the strategy, execution, and leadership side of games. The project manager is pretty much your right hand person and your main partner who helps with the execution side. So they're the ones who help with the Jira plan. They're the ones who make sure things are running on time. They interact with development both on the art side as well as the engineering side, and really make sure things happen on time. Because as a PM, I can make all the plans and say, I hope this happens and we complete this in the sprint. But the producer or the project manager is the person who helps me really track that. So that's why they're really, really important role in the studio. That's why, in fact, the studio is generally led by an executive producer, because they're the ones who make sure everything is happening on time. The next role is a program manager. So this is not the most common role, but a lot of places you will see this role, especially in bigger companies. And a program manager essentially handles multiple products. So they're like a super project manager, a super producer, if you will, because they generally interface between game studios and leadership and executives. So, just to give an example, at a company, let's say like Amazon, right? You could have a program manager between studios and overall leadership at AWS or retail or whoever the studios goes up into. So the idea is that they help report, summarize everything that is happening in a quick and easy format for executive consumption. So it's not a role, like I said, at smaller studios and smaller companies, but definitely at the bigger companies. Another thing is, this is a very generic title that can be applied in a lot of different ways. So, for example, at Microsoft, they don't have product managers or project managers. They just have program managers. And then you have to go to the job description and read and figure out whether it's a product role or a project role or a program role. So even though I'm making it sound really easy, a lot of places will actually change the titles a little bit. So I would always recommend read the job description to understand whether is it really a product role or did they really mean to write project management here. And the last one is product marketing manager. So this actually sits on the marketing team. Generally, a PMM can be of two types. There is brand marketing, where it's about campaign rollouts, having the doing a launch at, let's say, at Big Bazaar or some, big local store where you want to put banners and, hoardings and advertisement, that kind of thing. Whereas the other type can be user acquisition online, where you have Google ads and Facebook ads. So that's generally what a PMM does, and it's a very different role from a regular product manager. But also, this is probably a second main stakeholder that I generally work with my producer and my PMM all the time to make sure we can launch our products. So these are the differences in the role. If you guys have any questions, feel free to chime in. But moving on, there are some other responsibilities to a game PM that I wanted to discuss. The first is the strategic AERM. So this is where I wanted to take a quick pause and say, does anybody here know what AERM stands for or could stand for? Feel free to chime in the Discuss channel, and yeah, just let me know. And I just saw somebody was saying that give us time to screenshot the slides. I can give this as a handout later to the organizers, so don't worry about it. But yeah, I'll keep that in mind. So I see Krishna says he's not sure what AERM stands for. Okay, so I'm seeing the replies trickle in, so I'll help out. So AERM stands for acquisition, engagement, retention, and monetization. So acquisition is people coming into the game. Engagement is what they're doing in the game. Retention is how long do they stay for, 1 day or 30 days. And monetization is, are they watching ads, are they buying something in your game? So this is the typical funnel that the game PM looks at. So if you see a job description and it says, oh, we need somebody to lead AERM, they basically mean lead the entire product lifecycle. Based on the AERM, you could work on features and design, which is how many levels there are, what the heroes are. Do I make a club or an axe? Do I make a shield today? Like really detailed thing. Or you could be on the live ops side where you're looking at events and sales. Oh, it's Diwali right now, so we want to do a Diwali event where somebody gets a big firecracker and you can defeat the enemies with that, something like that. And the other side, which is really, really important, is the analytics side, which I have a slide for later. But for now, I want to take a bit of a breather with all this description that I'm giving, and let's do a quick exercise. So this is something that is such a common question in the PM industry, where people say that the battle royale market, as you know, with Fortnite and PUBG, is dominated by 2-3 successes and many failed titles. So there's PUBG, there's Fortnite, there's Call of Duty, there's Apex Legends, and many others. So if you were making a new game today, would you make a battle royale? Like, yes or no? And if you say yes, I would make a battle royale, or no, I wouldn't, why would you not make a battle royale? So I'm glad to know Devang likes this slide. But yeah, it's a really common question. So I wanted to kind of put your hat on and think, like, would you make a battle royale? Why or why not? I'll give you guys a few seconds to chime in. Okay, I see Zap saying the market is too saturated. That's a great point. Loads of well-established titles. Yes, it's really hard to go in. Your acquisition costs would be this very high, and that's what CISO says as well. Too costly and risky. No work to where the market is going to be. So battle royale is where it is today. Where do you want to be? That's what you want to do. And the competition is too high. That is true. What's the difference in engagement and retention and the KPIs? Great point. I have a slide right after this about analytics. And now Fortnite and Apex are dying. Yes. So you see, right? And now we have a different answer. Yes, multiplayer engagement, retention do great. So that's the kind of questions we look at as product managers. And these are the kind of some of the data points we look at. But I'll tell you what we're thinking of. So the first thing is, I always hear this from a lot of people. When you look at game titles for comparison, let's say I'm making a new battle royale, people are like, oh yeah, Fortnite does $4 billion. If I make a new battle royale and I just do 25% of that, I'll make at least $1 billion, which would be amazing, right? Well, not really, right? The amount of effort it took to get a game like Fortnite is enormous. Like, I don't know how many of you know the story, but Fortnite actually existed way before it became popular, I think in 2017. Right? They actually had an offline game where you could play just against the AI and do stuff. And then when PUBG became popular, they quickly pivoted to a multiplayer mode, and that's what made it so famous. But it was around for many years before that, and nobody used to play it. So just because there is a success, that doesn't mean that's the one you should look at all the time, which is why I always say that when people are doing a comparison of, let's say, the battle royale market, remove the top 3 from the analysis, because there's such big outliers that if you look at average revenue per month made by a battle royale, those will skew everything that you have. Right. So the thing is, remove the top 3, look at them, learn from them, but don't have them as the ones that you're aiming at, because they're just outlier successes. The second is, think about the details, right? Okay, Fortnite is popular, but why? Right? And these are a couple of reasons. That the first, the art style, right? You compare Fortnite, I'll just take PUBG or Warzone as an example, right? They're much more core. So they have a very different audience. Whereas whereas Fortnite has a very accessible art style. So anybody can go in and play, anybody can pick it up. So it's a lot more open than, let's say a war-based game. The second is, it's competitive, right? So it's similar to PUBG and others. It's competitive. Everybody wants a competition. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to be the last survivor. So that's something that everybody always enjoys. And the last one, which is actually really critical to its success, is teen virality. So one of the main reasons Fortnite became popular is that kids started playing it in schools. It was free to get. You could play it on PC. Later, you could play it on mobile as well. So just, kids were not paying money, but they really got the word of mouth out there. And when you got, millions and millions of people playing, it just naturally rises to the top of the charts, right? And then you compare it to something like Apex. Apex was also really, really popular at launch, but why did it suddenly become a big deal? And the main reason was unique marketing strategy. It wasn't the art to start with or the virality. What they did was actually, it was the virality, because what they did was they actually went to the top streamers in the world, had them under contract, and then suddenly one fine day in February, I remember, I get my year wrong, maybe I think it was 2018, that they just said, hey, EA is doing this new battle royale. And like, I work in the industry, I have friends that I had never heard of this game. I'm like, where EA is doing a battle royale? Like, I never heard of this when I was there. So it was just a big deal. Like, everybody was suddenly talking about it, and it was also a great game. So it became really, really popular. So I just want to give you an idea the way a product manager thinks about it. So I know there were a few questions in analytics. So let's talk a bit about that now, right? I'll let everybody take a screenshot, and I'll spend a bit of time on this. Yes, on the I just saw a comment from Karthik. They also capitalized on the well-acclaimed Titanfall 2. That's correct. They also actually had released Anthem like 2 weeks before that. So that also did really, really well. So on the analytics side, these are a few different metrics that we look at. The first is really basic metric. This is like your daily data. There's not a lot of information here, but this is what you look at every day. Daily active players, DAU, daily revenue, average revenue per daily active user. That's what ARPDAU stands for. And they're just informational metrics. You just come in, you look at your DAU, okay, it looks fine. There's not much you can do from it. Then you start getting into more granular metrics like game metrics, right? Like I've written players who completed a particular level, players who bought a particular character, a particular weapon, a particular sale, really starting to understand the behavior of your players. The third is you want to start doing segmentation, right? Doing spend by, people used to use these terms like minnows, dolphins, and whales, but now people have kind of moved up beyond those terminology, and it's more about high spenders and low spenders, or non-spenders, or ad watchers, or you could have people who are, very social, so high social, low social, things like that. The next part is analysis. So you can actually really, really deep dive into this, that, hey, we see a lot of people buying a new character, but they're not playing it. Why would somebody buy something but not play it? And this is an actual analysis I did many, many years ago, where it turned out that people would see all these pro players playing a particular character. They would love it, say, oh my God, this is so overpowered, we want to buy it. And when they would buy it, they would realize it's a really complicated character to make, so it's not newbie friendly, and they would just stop playing it. So then these unique edge cases that you can find, and when we didn't see the engagement, we saw the monetization, but we didn't see the engagement. And in the end, it's about the players, right? We don't want the players to have a bad time. That's not what we go for. So then we fixed that character, and we told the streamers that, they should also mention that this is a high-end, very complicated character. Somebody wants to try it out, try its sister character, which is easier to ramp up, and then eventually they can get to the main character. So just by doing some deep dive analysis, you can learn a lot. Moving on, there's deep dive ML optimization. We all know AI, ML are buzzwords nowadays, but it's something that can really, really help your game. So for example, I'm sure any of you that plays multiplayer games has had the issue. You join a multiplayer game and you face such a difficult player, and you're like, my God, the game is so bad. It keeps matching me with all these pro players. I'm always losing. Great point. What is ELO? So ELO is actually a rating system that comes from chess. So when you hear of grandmasters in chess, or if you saw the new Netflix show, ELO is how they rate players. So I'll give you an example in games that I know of, that everybody starts at 1000 ELO. If you play Age of Empires 2 online, the definitive edition, that's how it works. Everybody starts at 1000 ELO. And then your first 10 games, based on how much you win or lose, it makes you jump a lot. So your first game, if you win, you could get 30 ELO. Your second one, they could give you 50 ELO. The third one would give you 100 ELO, because you're obviously better than the 1000 ELO or the skill rating you're at. If you start losing, then it will subtract the same amount. And after 10 games, it will kind of settle you into your main kind of skill bracket, let's say 800 ELO. And then every game would, it actually doesn't have a full form. It's not an acronym. It's just the name of a system. And you can check it out on Wikipedia. It's pretty common. There's also another competitor system called Glico. But yeah, I won't go too much into ELO and Glico systems today. The idea is that ML can really help you optimize this. And I work with a lot of data scientists to figure out basically what is the right skill rating for a player. How do I figure out if a player is really good at first person shooters or really bad when they join a game? The next one is the AERM funnel. We already spoke a bit about this earlier. Looking at different metrics in each one of the user funnel types, AERM, and the last one is A/B testing. So this is kind of my bread and butter, right? A lot of times I don't know what to do, right? If I'm doing a sale, I'm like, would players like 100 food in this or 100 wood on top of everything else? I don't know. Let's run both, and whichever one is doing better, we'll do that. Or I'm like, hey, people would like a green thing, a box or a blue box. I don't know, I can't tell which color is better, so let's do both 50-50 and see which one performs. What ML tools are used for unity based game? Honestly, I don't know about that one. I mostly use ML along with data scientists to figure out like kind of game problems, but that's more of a dev problem, so I would probably encourage you to go to one of the dev tracks and ask that question. So ending this slide, based on all these analytics, there's different roles that are there, and I want to just mention them briefly because they are quite different. So the first is a marketing analyst, and a marketing analyst would actually look in the acquisition part of the AERM funnel. Look at how many people are coming in, from what countries are they coming in, how much does it cost per player, metrics like that. Whereas a game analyst, as I mentioned on top, looks at game metrics, right? Players who completed a particular level, players who bought a particular character. Oh, it's really difficult. Let's change the difficulty curve on this, things like that. Whereas a data scientist, as Sai just asked, right, they really help with the ML side, right? How do we figure out the right ELO? What tools do we use, right? How do we do economy analysis? Those kind of things. So even in analytics, you need to figure out the right kind of role to go for. So that's the purpose of this slide. If you have any questions about analytics, feel free to chime in and chat. But we'll go back to doing some more fun questions and typically, what do PMs think of? So this is my favorite question. This has happened to me way too many times to count. But your manager comes in on a Monday morning and tells you, Vic, the revenue fell 50% overnight. Look into it now. What do you look into next? What kind of metrics would you look at, or what kind of data would you look at to figure out that the revenue fell by so much? I need to figure out why this happened. Yeah, feel free to chime in and chat. I look forward to seeing your responses. My expenses and acquisition cost, that's a great point, Divyansh. Like, maybe your acquisition cost went up, right? So if you were acquiring people for $10 for 1,000 players, now suddenly it's maybe $100, and because your cost is high, your overall revenue is low. Maybe DAU is high, right? So that's a great question, right? I've actually heard of this really famous case in the industry that every Sunday the DAU would fall at lunch, and the game team could not figure out why. And when they looked into it for months, they couldn't figure it out until they got somebody who was a big football fan or soccer fan. And they realized that Sunday afternoon, there used to be local games in kind of their highest DAU country. And that's why everybody was watching football and they were not, playing the game. So yeah, DAU can totally fall. Any other guesses? Social media, cancel culture, maybe. Yeah, maybe your game just got some negative press, right? Maybe there's something wrong that you did, or maybe you have somebody that you contracted for the game and they have some negative media news. That could have happened, sure. I'll give it 10 more seconds. Bad update. Oh, that's a great point, right? That's happened countless times, that you pushed it on testing, it was fine in QA, and then you push it to live and something went wrong. It works fine on your devices, but maybe in a particular country it doesn't work. Maybe just the build is bad and you need to update it again. Tech issues, yeah, maybe just the game is having some server issues. So these are all great points, and some of these are actually on the answers here. But the first thing, right, as soon as you find out that the revenue is fell 50%, the first question is it still falling? Right? Because based on whether it's still falling or not, right, the urgency changes. If it's still falling, it's like, first let's fix it, and then later we'll figure out why. Versus if it's kind of tapered out and it's normal, then it's more of an investigative process than an urgent let's fix it now process. The second is, as somebody mentioned, there's a bad update. Is the game still working? right? That's the number one. Can you load the game? Can you load it on an iOS device, an Android device? Can you do a VPN into another country and try, or ask a colleague from another studio? Third, as Sai said, the DAU. What does the DAU look like? Is it that simple that just we don't have enough players today, and then we can look into why? The next one is the sales, right? Maybe you release something and people aren't buying that. They don't like the character. They don't like your sale. Maybe the sale itself is not working. Maybe all of this is fine. Maybe you have enough players and maybe your sale is great. Maybe you just don't have enough active payers. That means you have active players, but not active payers. So there's a very fine difference, right, between players and payers. So maybe everything is fine. Or maybe your players count is fine, maybe your payer count is fine, but your average payer revenue and cohorted payer revenue is different. So what I mean by that is that, let's say on an average, every payer pays $2, right? So maybe today they're just paying $1.50. So the question is, why aren't they buying the better stuff, right? Maybe they don't like the sale, or maybe they just it's the end of the month and people don't have as much money. So when you really cohort it out, or when you really slice it out, you look at different cohorts. Maybe it's only your high-end payers that are not paying, or maybe it's all the smaller payers who are just watching ads, who are not watching as many ads, and ad revenue is going down. So really cohorting it out, or just slicing and dicing it, makes a difference. Somebody mentioned user acquisition. I think Divyansh did, right? User acquisition countries. Maybe the install funnel is not working. One of the country acquisitions is not working. And the last one, this actually somebody told me in a different talk, which I never thought of, is the analytics system actually reporting correctly, right? I'm like, wow, I never thought about that. But yeah, analytics can be bad sometimes. So yeah, just a few different examples of what I would look at if the revenue was falling. And we have one more example. So since everybody loves Fortnite, I have a Fortnite Battle Pass here. And this is a much more detailed PM deep dive analysis question, right? I've actually asked this question in interviews where I'm like, okay, so everybody knows about the Fortnite Battle Pass. Do you think it's a good system for Epic, right? From the business standpoint, or do you think it's a bad system for Epic? And then what makes it good or bad in terms of the design of a Battle Pass? Right, before Fortnite's Battle Pass, Battle Pass wasn't really a thing. Like, people used the concept at a high level, but nobody had Battle Passes. So feel free to chime in into chat about if you've tried the Fortnite Battle Pass or Battle Pass in any other game. Like, what do you think of the system? Why do you think businesses like Battle Passes? Much better than loot boxes, where having items time limited makes people buy more compared to gambling. Yeah, that's a big complaint against loot boxes, right? So here in a Battle Pass, you can see in the image, right? In the silver line, you get all of that. In the gold line, you get the stuff at the bottom. So it's very clear. You get it for sure if you get there. So there's no gambling element to it. So that also makes it, more friendly. It's not as predatory. So I totally get that. It helps and makes players play more to receive better rewards. So you're kind of hitting the nail on the head, Samuel, right? That it's actually about engagement more than monetization. It gives you a reason to play more. It gives you a goal. And that's exactly what Zap said, right? It gives you a goal to work towards. So just being cognizant of time, and because I want to leave some time for Q&A, moving on. So the main thing is looking at conversion over monetization over engagement, right? And like Divyansh is saying, right, it's about the rewards are spread out over 83 days. So I get engagement for 3 months, right? That's amazing. Most people don't engage for more than a couple of days. So with Battle Pass, it lets you hit the largest user base possible. And then because the price is generally very cheap, right? If you have 50 million monthly active users, which like a game like Fortnite has, an average game would probably only have 500K MAU or a few million MAU, and only 1% convert at $10 each, that's $5 million a month, right? Obviously, 50 million MAU is a lot, but for Fortnite, right, they just had a few people convert and make it really cheap. And then, they obviously had some interesting pricing strategies where it cost 950 V-Bucks, but for $10, you get 1,000 V-Bucks. So you have 50 V-Bucks left in your wallet, and it's always bugging you. Like, oh, what do I do with 50 V-Bucks? I can't do much with it. Maybe I should buy a few hundred more and get that skin or get the latest reward. So, they have some pricing strategies in there, but in the end, Battle Passes are actually about conversion and engagement, and not so much about monetization. Monetization is a nice side effect, but the main thing, as Divyansh said, is that it's about prolonging the reward. And then the other part is they only have vanity in it and not pay to win. So what I mean by that is that you have skins and emotes and llamas, things that make it look different, but they don't give you a super powered gun that does double damage or something, because then you could just pay to win, right? I could pay $20, buy all the best guns, always kill everybody, and always win, which obviously makes it not fun for the free to play players. Another amazing thing about the Fortnite Battle Pass is their make your money back system, where if you pay 950 V-Bucks to get it, if you complete the whole thing, you actually get 1,300 V-Bucks in the Battle Pass, right? So based on that, what happens is that the pitch is amazing, but to get to 1,300 V-Bucks, you need to play a lot. And at that point, the extra $2 revenue that I give up to you, you're my hyper engager. It's worth it to me. So if you like these kind of questions and analyses, I definitely encourage you to check out these two websites. Deconstructor of Fun is probably the most popular website for PMs, right? They actually deconstruct games. That's why it's called Deconstructor of Fun, because they deconstruct the fun games. And they really have 5-page, 10-page analyses to understand what goes behind game making, a particular game mechanic. For example, like the Battle Pass question that I gave. And Game Makers at Substack is another interesting newsletter, more about the industry. What's the latest thing in the game industry? People are starting to work from home or go back to work. What does that look like? Things like that. So that's really cool. I saw one more question come in. Does a PM also deal with player psychology? We do. We generally part with consumer research, because they have all the research, and also with the UI and UX designers who kind of help us understand different user personas, the different kind of players there are and what we're trying to do. So yes, we deal with it, but we generally work with the experts and different people on our team to work to understand player psychology. So that's it. That was my whole talk. If you have more questions, hit me up on LinkedIn. That's my talk. So if you have any other questions, feel free to chime in, and I'm happy to take some. I see a question from Pritika. I'm a hotel management grad. I'm fascinated in product management. What are your tips for non-engineers who are willing to learn? Yeah. Sorry, Rahul, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I think that was brilliant. And honestly, I've of all the talk, this one had some, I think, has some really great engagement. People asking very informed questions and engaging with it. And what I absolutely love was the interactivity. You actually got people involved. Into this talk. That was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I think it's pretty late. Like we have quite a lot of people on this track, and it's almost 9 o'clock. So that's absolutely amazing. That was lovely. It was very informative. A lot of it went above my head but considering that I'm not specifically from mobile, I was able to understand a lot. So that was absolutely brilliant. And I think you can just kind of go through the questions.
Sure.
And answer whatever you think is right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to take all of them. So I see Pritika's question. I'm a hotel management grad, not from engineering. What's the best way to pursue this? And what experience do companies look for? So generally, the main experience companies look for is industry experience. So, for example, right, in hotel management, if you wanted a senior position there, generally people say join the industry and work your way up, as opposed to trying to come in from outside, and people may not give you a senior position. It's the same way here, right? That if you're a non-engineer, like I came in obviously from analytics, which was more technical, but let's say, depending on your degree, you're more on the marketing side, right? Then once you work your way into marketing and you're like, okay, I understand either brand marketing or user acquisition marketing and performance marketing, then, the skills are very transferable, whether it's hotel management or retail or gaming or tech, it's all the same. So I would say, find the right role, and then, there'll be a sister role in gaming companies or tech or any other industries. From Sai, I see a few questions. Oh, sorry. The first one is from Sunny. Which are the best analytics tools? So actually, that's a really interesting question, and that's a whole talk in itself. But I'll give you the short version. It depends on what you're trying to do, right? So if you're doing marketing, SEO analytics, and something different, you have a marketing analytics tool there. If you have game analytics, then generally, people use all varieties of tools. My favorite one that I've ever used is this very niche one called Caravelle. It's actually from Airbnb. and they released it, I think, open source or for companies to use, and it makes it really easy. Like if you have non-technical users, they can drag and drop stuff. That is my favorite. But generally, what I've noticed at game studios is that you always have two different kinds of tools for product managers. One is your more for like live ops and day-to-day reporting. You can see the trends, you can see your DAU, you can see charts and things go on. And the second is for deep diving, for which you use Tableau, right? And really to slice and dice your data and get the details. So there's kind of a live ops dashboard, and then there's a Tableau dashboard. I see from Sai, I have 5 years of experience working on my own mobile game startup. Do you think a PM certificate will help me in a career growth? So I'm not sure. So in the US, at least, I know that a certificate is like a nice to have, but there's nothing like your own experience. So if I saw somebody with, let's say, 5 years experience versus somebody with a 2 years experience with the certificate, I would definitely take the 5 years experience. So I would say, explain about what you've done in the game, right? Because like you work on your own mobile game startup, so you probably want all hats, right? You've done a bit of marketing, you've done a bit of development, you've done a bit of product management. So it's about how you translate and explain that experience. Because if I made my own app, I can say, hey, I'm an amazing developer, I code in these languages, and this is what I do. And I could still say, hey, I manage my app, like I have technical skills, but I manage it. This is the product, this is the pitch, this is the vision. Then you're talking more like a product manager. So the same thing can be explained in two different ways. Are there any curated resources to learn PM skills specifically for the gaming industry? So actually, I would say start with the blog that I mentioned, Deconstructor of Fun, because that literally shows you what a PM like me thinks about and what we look at. How do you do something like a game teardown and understanding? And then like you don't start as a PM, because a PM is something you become with experience. You start with a different role. So you either start as a project manager and you become, the master of scheduling, and then you work your way to a PM. Or you start as an analyst and really understand the numbers and then work your way. Or as I gave a different example earlier, right? You start in marketing and then you could eventually become PMM or a PM. So you actually work your way to a PM versus starting as a PM. What's the difference in engagement and retention? What are the different KPIs? Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, right? So engagement would be, let's say for a feature, how many people are clicking on this every day? How many people are using this power up every day? How many people are reaching level X in the new event? So that's the kind of, like, they become really slicey dicey. Whereas for retention, it's your typical, D1 retention, D7 retention, D30, D60, D90, and just seeing, how many people come back, payer retention, non-payer retention, things like that. The fast and strong communication skills, thanks for that. I know I'm going really, really fast. I'm just trying to answer all the questions. And the starting resources I mentioned, I would definitely check out these two blogs that I have on the screen. I'll put them up here. And yeah, just let me know if you have any questions about that.
All right, I think we'll take one last question because we're over time.
Okay.
Let's take the last one. What's the difference between a B2B and a B2C PM?
Sure. Yeah. Between a B2B and B2C. So they're definitely very, very different. And maybe I'm going to actually, based on this feedback, I'm going to add a slide later to show the different kinds of PMs. But yeah, a B2B PM, right, is thinking about large enterprise level solutions. So it's a lot more about complexity and integrations and, how the two businesses work. And that's, just focusing on that. But B2C is completely different. You have millions of people in millions of in thousands of countries, and you want to see what they're doing, how things are working. So it's very, very different. And I would say they're completely different markets. And so that I don't miss the last question. Artist into PM, I've not seen. Developer into PMs is very, very common. So yes, right. I think I got all the questions.
Right. So the one I'm going to extract my pound of flesh by asking my one question. So a lot of people, right, me included, like I'm really interested in mobile games, right? But I'm more from the design side, right? I'm a designer and I want to make something great. So a lot of people might be interested in having their own startups and getting into mobile games as well, because mobile games has, comparatively a low barrier to entry technically, but because it's so competitive out there, right? Because making a game, designing a game, making gameplay is one thing, but then now you are entering the realm of statistics and data and product management. And quite frankly, it's all quite intimidating, right? So if there's someone who wants to actually learn product management, just like looking at the acronyms, you're like, whoa, it's a lot of people get freaked out, including me. So what would you say would be a good way? Because in the game industry, it's not like you can do a course, you can go to a college and someone will teach you this is how you do A/B testing and you get a certificate, and then so you have to learn this stuff on the job. So what is a good way to actually, if you want to do this for yourself, make your own game, start up your own company, for entrepreneurs especially who want to learn this stuff, how do you do that? And how much time is realistic to actually learn it? Like, what's a good path?
Yeah, so that's a great question, right? And the thing is, I think the first question I would answer is, do you actually like it? Right? Because like when you work on console and PC games, it's a lot more passion based, right? Not to say I'm not passionate about mobile game, I love it, but it's not for a lot of people. The first thing I would actually say is that if you hit a website like DOF or Deconstructor of Fun, right, that actually shows that has posts on game design as well as product management, and they'll say, okay, let's take a latest game like Genshin Impact. Right, it came out last year. It's been doing really, really well in the world. It's one of the first big multi-platform game that's doing really well, and you can analyze it both from a mobile and a console perspective, and that will make you go, oh man, I love this stuff, or oh man, I really don't like this stuff. This is terrible. Like not for me. I want to go back to making console games or PC games. So I think the first thing is understanding whether you like it or not, because it is very different. Right. And once you realize, no, this is what I want to do, this is what I like, then, game design for mobile games is obviously very different, which is why, like, I know at IGDC, there was a different talk by Purnima, who's my colleague at Zynga, and she did a talk with Brenda Romero. So I'm guessing, that would have a lot of content about mobile game design. And, how is that different, right? You have to design it for, instead of console, where you're designing for longer term engagement and amazing visuals and graphics that stick around. It's about how do you make the message clearer to the player? How do you make things easy and quick? So it's a very different style, which is why starting with things like DOF and industry talks, like we're having having opportunities like IGDC to come and listen. I think honestly that's the way I learned. Like I didn't go into the details of how I found the job, but I went to GDC 3 times in San Francisco on my own dime. I only got the student ticket because that's what I could afford. I went to other gaming conferences and I talked to one person at a time. I'm like, so what is a product manager? Like, what's the difference in a project manager? And it just took me a lot of learning. So yeah, I have more details on my blog, but yeah, it was a lot of work. So I would say resources like IGDC are what helped the most.
Excellent. Can you possibly type your blog into the chat here? That would be absolutely awesome, guys. Please bookmark it and do visit, do subscribe, and that was absolute gold. And if there's some way in which perhaps if you'd be okay with sending us your slides, and if it's okay to share, I think that'd be really valuable. So absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for taking time out. I know you probably have to finish this. You probably have meetings starting soon. So, so awesome. That was a brilliant talk. Thank you for taking time out. And I'm sure all of us and everyone here got fantastic value from that. So once again, thank you so much. And guys, that's the end of the careers track for today. Thank you so much. And guys, please, before you leave, please go and hit that handouts button, and please go, and it'll take you like 30 seconds. Just go in there, give your feedback if there's anything you want to tell us about this talk and this particular session. That'd be awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good night. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much, Vic. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. See ya.
All right, people, thank you so much for being up this late. I appreciate that you are here instead of watching the cricket. It's awesome. So, and for those of you who are interested in working abroad, if you guys are interested in working in Europe, if you're interested in working in the US, studying abroad, working abroad over there, then tomorrow we have 2 awesome talks for you. So do make sure that you're there for those talks. They will be between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock.